Hello everyone, Ember Power here and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be going over some Gardevoir deck lists from Japan in the upcoming sets Scarlet and Violet. So just some new translations to go over. Gardevoir EX, 310 HP, a lot of HP for a 2 prize Pokemon, is a stage 2 unfortunately, so it's going to be a little bit awkward to get out, but thankfully we do have some pretty good support Pokemon and ways of getting out Pokemon into play. So Gardevoir has the ability Psychic Embrace, which is like the main attraction of this card. Says, often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon, and you can't use his ability to knock that Pokemon out, essentially. So very strong ability, and it will allow us to accelerate a whole bunch of energy to lots of different Psychic Pokemon that we want to use to attack with. Because Miracle Force doing 190, removing all special conditions, it's an okay attack, but truth be told, it is, it's just meh. And it's not really good enough for current standard format. So one of the partners is Banette EX, so it has 250 HP on a stage 1, which is a little bit below average for V-Star and EX hit points, but still a very good card. Has 2 really good attacks. Eternal Darkness says your opponent can't play any item cards. Item lock has been traditionally very strong in the past, so it should be interesting to see how well Banette EX performs. And then the attack Poltergeist does 60 damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. So your opponent will have to play around Banette very carefully if they want to avoid massive 1-hit KOs. We also see some Klefkis and Houndstooms in several of these lists. So Houndstoom, 140 HP, single prize attacker, has the attack Graveyard Visitation, does 80 damage and then 10 more for each Psychic Pokemon in your discard pile. Not too bad. And then the Klefki has the ability Prank Lock that says, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, each player's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Prank Lock. So typically, a lot of these Gardevoir lists don't really play basic Pokemon with abilities. You could play like the Mew from Celebrations maybe, but most of these lists have just opted for Klefki because it does buy you some time against decks like Gardevoir, or decks that want to make use of stuff like Radiant Greninja, Comfey, and that kind of thing. So Klefki, pretty good tech card overall. Going to the first list here, we see a bog standard build, 4 Ralts, 4 Curlier to be expected. No Chilling Reign Gardevoir, just the Gallade from Chilling Reign that has the attack Helix Cutter, I believe. Does like 160 for 3 and allow you to move an energy from that Gallade to one of your benched Pokemon, so pretty strong. We also see 2 Gardevoir, so a little bit risky if they get prized, but still, I don't hate it to be honest. Does mean that we'll have to be more careful which Pokemon we use to attack with though, which is a little bit concerning, because we do only play 1 Zacian V in this deck list. Allows us to, once in our turn, search our deck for Psychic Energy, attach it to our Pokemon, but it will end your turn. And then its attack does 50 damage, I believe, or 60 damage, and then 30 more for each Psychic Energy attached to Zacian V. So, Gardevoir Zacian, very potent combo, and it will help with accelerating energy in the early game. We also see 2 copies of Articuno, allowing you to play 2 Psychic Energy onto it when you bench it, and also do 120 damage Snipe move, and also discarding all Psychic Energy attached to Articuno, which of course we can then reattach with Gardevoir. Then for support Pokemon, we have a Manaphy and a Greninja, just to give us some bench protection and additional draw power that synergizes really well with Gardevoir. As for the trainers, nothing too crazy. 4 Level Ball, 4 Fog Crystal, 4 Battle VIP passes seems pretty reasonable. 2 Ultra Balls to be expected. We want to discard energies, but we also don't want to discard too many resources. We also see 1 Rare Candy, which is pretty interesting, meaning you're probably not going to hit, your Rare Candy going second, or like your Rare Candy turn 2, I should say, but still, one Rare Candy, fair enough. 4 Cross Switcher is kind of like your main Gust outs in this deck, because you only play 1 Boss's Orders, and no Serena, notably, so 4 Cross Switcher is going to be your Gusting option. 1 Forest Seal Stone to attach to Zacian, to potentially knock out a VMAX or a V-Star to get 1 extra prize card, which seems really strong. And then 1 Defined Band that says, if you're behind on prizes, this Pokemon's attacks do plus 30 damage. So then, what's probably the most interesting aspect about this list for me personally is like the sheer amount of different supporters it's playing. It's playing 2 Avery, 1 Cynthia, 1 Zania, 1 Roxanne, 1 Judge, 1 Arvin, 1 Cheryl, 1 Clara, 1 Boss, and then 2 of the Mesagoza Stadium. So it's a very interesting list. I'm not sure if I agree with all the choices here, but I do approve of like the 1 Cheryl and the 1 Arvin that could help find yourselves like a tool card and an item. So Yeah, I think this deck is super interesting. It's a super cool list, but I'll have to see how this one performs because, like, obviously that amount of supporters is pretty questionable. The next list is going to be based on the Net EX, so it runs a 3/3 line of it. And it also plays 4 copies of the Mewtwo V Union to allow you to build it as a piece, and then 1 Klefki. So Mewtwo V Union, pretty interesting to see that in here. I'm not sure why you need Mewtwo V Union, but I can guess it's easier to power up considering you have Banette to buy yourself some more time, so you can kind of like item lock your opponent, hit them with Poltergeist several times over while you build up to Mewtwo V Union. I guess that's kind of like the whole point of this list. And you also have, Klefki to buy yourself some more time. Trainers are pretty similar to the last list in terms of items. We're seeing the same trainers again. Ultra Ball. This list, I think, is playing Nest Ball, and the previous list was not, so I guess that's a bit of a difference. This list is also playing Heavy Research in 4 Research, 2 Serena, 2 Judge, 1 Roxanne, 2 Boss. I think that's kind of like the norm going forward, honestly, for a support account. 4 Research, 2 Serena, 2 Judge, 1 Roxanne, 2 Boss. Just gives you a lot of choice as well as some decent disruption in the form of Judge and Roxanne. So pretty strong overall. The stadium choice is also a little bit different. 3 Beach Court over 2 Masagoza. So Beach Court will of course allow you to reduce your basic retreat cost by 1. I didn't say what the translation for Masagoza was, but that's basically just a Pokeball on a stadium card. You flip a coin of heads, search your Pokemon. So Masagoza is literally just a Pokeball, but it is continuous throughout the turns. So I can see the appeal of running both of these, but I do like Beach Court because it will give, Shuppet and Curlias free retreat, so you can get them out the active, or not Curlias, rather, Ralts. We'll get them free retreat to get them out the active, so you can put a Klefki in, or, something else. So yeah, I do like this list overall. 6 Psychic Energy is a bit sketch. I'd want more Psychic Energy, I think, in this list, but overall, very solid list. I'd be looking forward to trying that out. Then we see a Shadow Rider build. I know a lot of people think Shadow Rider is probably the best build for Gardevoir. I'm personally not so sold on Shadow Rider just because it's a 3-price Pokemon and you have to reduce your HP with Gardevoir. But not the worst in the world. Again, we're seeing like 1 Gallade because you need that kind of 1-price option, and it's also just really strong with the Premonition. 3 Trade Curlia to allow you to discard a card, draw 2. 4 Ralts. We do see 1 Radiant Tricina that actually allows you to heal 20 damage from each of your Pokemon, so you can offset some of that nasty damage counters that are placed by Gardevoir, which is pretty cool to see. There's also some like more interesting trainers here. We see the 1 Aromatic Incense from Silver Tempest. We see a 1 copy of Lost Sweeper to get rid of some tool cards. 2 copies of Forest Sealed Stone, so you are playing a 4/4 V-line, so you could get away with tablets. I'm not sure if you really need Forest Sealed Stone, but it is a decent option, I guess, to give a bit of consistency boost, especially when, you can attach it to a Shadow Rider V and then use it to tutor out a Gardevoir or something in the following turn, or maybe one of your 2 rare candies. So yeah, seems pretty good. Support account is pretty light, only playing 4 Research, 1 Lady, and then 3 Boss. Not really sure I'm a fan of this. I'd rather just cut the Aromatic Incense and maybe even the Lost Sweeper in favor of some additional draw supporters, but overall seems okay. You're definitely reliant on Shadow Rider, so against Path to the Peak is a bit scary. Temple of Sinnoh does help a bit in some matchups, which I do like. But yeah, pretty sketchy overall. Not sure how much I enjoy this list, but we'll have to see how well it performs. This next list, though, I'm a little bit more optimistic about. This is the Mewtwo V-Star deck. So Mewtwo V-Star, 90 damage for each Psychic Energy that you discard from your Pokemon. Obviously has great synergy with Gardevoir. You just accelerate a bunch of Psychic Energy in play, and then you can start one-hit killing basically anything in the game. So Mewtwo, Gardevoir seems like a devastating combo. Also see a pretty thick line of Ralts Courier as well, so should be easy enough to set up, I should say. Also, the trainer count is a little bit more safe. We're playing more draw supporters, so we're not bricking as much. 3 Judge, so we can disrupt our opponent quite a bit while we set up a large bench of Gardevoirs. 1 Serena for that boss option, as well as the discard synergy. 1 Cheryl I do approve of because we are discarding our energy with Mewtwo, so running 1 Cheryl doesn't seem that bad. We can also tutor it out with Forest Sealed Stone, which is pretty cool. Also see 2 Boss's Orders, and then 2 Old Cemetery for the stadium choice. So Pretty cool list. Also, that funny looking Choice Band-esque card next to Forest Seal Stone is just a Choice Belt. So plus 3 damage to your opponent's Vs and V-Maxes, or V-Stars. So yeah, I kind of like this list a lot. I think it's pretty cool. If Mewtwo's ever going to be good in Standard, this is probably the list that it will be good in. So this next list is more of a focus on Zacian V and Lunarock than past lists before. It's also running some skeptical cards, which we'll talk about in a second, but either way, 4 copies of Lunarock, so 30 damage and 30 more for each Psychic Energy attaches Pokemon. It's just a bit weaker than Zacian V, and you can't use Forest Seal Stone with Lunarock, but it is a single prize Pokemon, forcing our opponent to play additional gust effects just to get around Lunarock giving up 1 prize card, so pretty cool in that regards. But we do see some interesting stuff like 2 copies of Ice Pops, 1 copy of Azura, 2 copies of Primordial Altar. Some very strange choices. Even the Chilling Reign Gardevoir made it into this list, and 2 Zinnia's Resolve as draw supporters. So I'm not really sold on this list as much as I am on some of the other ones. I do think it's cool to lean into Heavy Zacian because the ability and the attack are both really, really solid. But the decision to include so many unique trainers and then having Lunarock in there is also just a wee bit jarring for me personally. I would have liked to have seen some more consistency in other areas of this deck. So I'd probably remove the Chilling Reign Gardevoir in favor of maybe, I don't know, second Clara maybe, or third Research. But yeah, it's interesting overall. Something worth noting as well is that we rarely see Gardevoir lists with more than 2 Gardevoirs in their deck. So hopefully that means the deck will be cheaper to build and pick up. But if you're going to build a Gardevoir, obviously right now, do pick up the Ralts, Curlier, and then maybe at least 1 Zacian V if you're hoping to try that out. So, bit of a single prize version of the deck. But moving on, we do see the Houndsdoomu variant. This is obviously playing substantially more Pokemon than before. Judging by how this list looks, I don't think this was thrown together on a whim. I think someone tested this out quite vigorously. We are playing a 4-4 Houndsdoomu line, 1 Articuno, and then 4 Articuno V, which has the ability to reconstitute, allowing you to discard 2 cards from your hand to draw an extra card. So you can use this ability to discard other Articunos and Houndsdooms in order to just bin more Psychic Pokemon effectively. We also see 2 Gallade, which is interesting. So this person's obviously wanting to attack with Gallade, or at least tutor out supporters in the mid to late game. And then 3 Klefki, just to kind of wall out the opponent in the early game, try and slow them down a bit. And then the items are all pretty aggro: 4 Level Ball, 4 Fog Crystal, 3 Ultra Ball, 4 Trekking Shoes, 1 Palpad, and then 3 Pokestops to try and thin them out additionally. So, pretty strong list overall. Not sure I'm a fan of Houndsdoomu, honestly. 80 damage plus 10 seems pretty weak, and there is no Choice Band or Defined Band, I think it's called, in this deck. So, a little bit sketch, but you are playing a heavy count of Pokemon, so maybe Houndsdoomu will be better than I give it credit for, but overall, I don't think this list is particularly great. This last list that I'd like to take a look at, unfortunately, there wasn't a better image for it, but it is a Zoroark box deck featuring Gardevoir. So it's a 3-3 Zoroark line with a 4-4-2 Gardevoir, plus it also plays the Gallade that does 60 damage for each of your opponent's V in play. So it could be good for taking out stuff like Regielekis. Also plays 1 Premonition Gallade like we've seen before. We also see a Hypno that allows you to search your deck for multiple stage 1s, put them into play, which is really important for this deck. We also see a Flapple that does 50 damage for each of your opponent's abilities in play, as well as a Banette EX, and a Manaphy, and a Mightyena for the Mew matchup. So it's a very interesting list overall. There's a lot of different pieces. As for the top right corner there, I know the image is a bit blurred. I think that's supposed to be 3 Miriams, but I can't be sure. It might be 1 Miriam and then 2 Arven or something, but I think that's 3 Miriams. But yeah, this is a very interesting list. It's questionable in quality, I think. The problem with a deck like this is obviously how consistent is it really, because there's no real draw engine apart from Courier, but it's a super cool list either way. And yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below. It's been some cool lists today. I think there's definitely potential for Gardevoir to be BDF. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. It's been Ember Power, and thank you for watching.